This is TWiT.
Frankly, this is, if you're a successful business in the United States, this is, part of the expectation. It's not like these guys, they didn't have to fly anywhere. They could do it from, I don't think this is going to sway any voters for sure. So it has no value in the election.
Most people didn't even understand, I bet,
Well, people understand. They understand in the shade of their political persuasion. Because I hear from a lot of people say, see that suppression of that post article? Prima facie proof that Twitter and Facebook don't like the president and are just going to block stuff.
Right.
And then people on the left said, well, I don't have to go into the positioning, but that's what they hear. But I don't think it's going to change anybody's vote.
But they didn't even talk about how Facebook, Mother Jones wrote about it, Margaret Sullivan at the Washington Post.
That's a really interesting question.
Wrote about it. So they're suppressing effectively left-leaning news and then favoring Breitbart and Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, but the Sullivan example, if you're Facebook and you set a rule that says if you are paid for primarily by a political organization, then that becomes a rule set by which they say, then no, we're not going to consider you news. I'm not defending Facebook here, but they try to come up with scalable rules. And that example from Margaret's column seemed a little bit not
But I think it shows. So I think it shows you that those rules are inevitably flawed. Breitbart is funded by conservative, billionaires. They just don't disclose it. And so if you disclose it the way Courier Newsroom does or Mother Jones does, then you get penalized. If you don't disclose it, then you just get to be in the newsfeed, even though you're running effectively disinformation.
Right. So they have crews and they call people on the outside. I don't get anything for this. But they'll call 20 people on the outside to say, let's just bounce stuff off. Do you mind talking to us? And I always say, okay, to any of the companies, because I learned stuff too. And they have people trying to decide, this was like a year ago, what's a news organization, right? So they went through just this, and they try to get other organizations outside to do it for them, right? Do you have a list? Can we just use your list? You got a list? No, you don't. Oh, hell. So we got to come up with our own rules, right? So they have a sign-up thing for news organizations, and they set rules because people are going to make them set rules because they want those rules when people go after them and yell at them and scream at them. Then they want to say, but we got rules.
So I guess the question is do you think Facebook's operating in good faith in general and just it's a hard thing to do and they're doing their best they can? I think it's a lot to accuse them of a bias one way or the other. It feels like in both cases, they're just trying to do the best they can. It's a far from perfect system. Is that fair? You agree, Ant? How about you, Jeff?
I agree with you, but I still think on both sides of the spectrum, Facebook could try harder. And I know that's easy for me to say sitting here in my little comfy chair.
It's hard. They got 2 billion daily users. That's a lot of traffic.
It's a lot of traffic, but they're paying people a lot of money to come up with these solutions too. So try harder.
So Ant thinks they could do better.
I agree with you, Leo. I think that there's a few different layers here. At the top, I think you can question motives. At the worker bee level, there are people who are trying really hard to come up with reasonable things and were there for a reason. I think that if the Australian stuff we talked about a few weeks ago, let's say that they passed that law in Australia and Facebook says, fine, we're pulling news off of Facebook in Australia. I think they're going to be secretly having champagne and smoked meat in happiness because news causes a lot of problems. And fine, screw it. We're going to go back to getting dates, and life's going to be a lot easier. And it sets a precedent that I think is going to be dangerous for our industry and for our society because if that's how people are finding out things and now they can't find it out, it's bad. But I think that's kind of where we're headed almost is can we conveniently get rid of this? It's a pain in the ass.
Matthew, do you think Facebook is well-intentioned, but it's just a hard thing to do, and so occasionally you get these mistakes? Or is it intentional? Do you think they have a bias?
Yes, I mean...
Oh, he froze.
I think there's no question Am I frozen?
You're back.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
But blurry. I I think there's no question that it's a very, very difficult job. I mean, billions of pieces of content are posted, every hour probably.
Right.
And they have to moderate all that somehow. But I think, they're worth hundreds of billions of possibly trillions of dollars. So, maybe they could try and do the things that they say they're going to do. And they could also be a whole lot more transparent about it. It's fine to just wave your hands and say, well, we're trying our hardest, but there's no way of knowing that. It's literally a black box.
Now, on the other hand, Twitter employees are accusing Jack Dorsey of absentee management, hands-off, delegating decisions, not really participating. And looking at his beard, he's clearly putting a lot of energy into growing the beard. Let's ask the same question about Twitter. Do you think Twitter's doing the best it can? Do you think it's biased?
Or is Jack Dorsey doing the best he can?
I doubt Jack Dorsey's doing the best he can. He's got other fish to fry.
That's been a criticism of him from the beginning.
All along,
he's running two gigantic companies,
right? And
he's not very involved in either one,
right?
But here's the other. But here, just to play ping pong here, right? But people say Zuckerberg should give up and delegate more power. He's too powerful in Facebook, and then they say to
that's exactly
Twitter,
what I was going with.
Right.
Because sometimes being a good leader speaks to how well you delegate on however many different tasks you have, whether it's a big Fortune 500 company or whatever, even or just like a football like team.
Leo
the
does.
Head coach gets a lot of credit.
I don't do anything at TWiT.
Yeah.
I show up, sit down, and let you all do the work.
You hold that desk down like no other.
Yeah, thanks to my great weight. Yeah.
There's a big Politico feature I put up on the rundown about Vijaya Gadde, who is the head of policy at Twitter, and she's making a lot of these decisions, and I've met her, and she's brilliant, and so yeah, he does delegate.
Shall I show the Ted Cruz clip? It's only about a minute.
Please.
Can I bear it? Can I get my blood pressure medication first?
Let's see if I can get it to.
And the look on Dorsey's face afterwards.
Let's see if I can get it to play. It's not. I probably blocking.
What's the hill?
Okay, I'll get it from another source. Let's see. Here we go. This is Fox News. They should have better video. Yeah. Let's see here. Senator Ted Cruz grills Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. It's not coming through here either. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go.
Chairman, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. The three witnesses we have before this committee today collectively pose, I believe, the single greatest threat to free speech in America and the greatest threat we have to free and fair elections.
Well, let's talk about that. Is that really true?
No, of course it's not true.
It seems like social media, for all its flaws, is about free speech.
Yes. Well, but that's
for the president as well as his detractors.
Oh, that's true too.
Okay. So, and certainly the hyperbole of saying it's the greatest threat, that's a little
Matthew's point. It's just grandstand.
That's a little strong, isn't it? I just lost the video. Let me see. Here, let's play it again. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Chairman,
we distracted
thank you, Mr.
Chairman,
for holding this hearing.
Okay.
The three witnesses we have before this committee today collectively pose, I believe, the single greatest threat to free speech in America and the greatest threat we have to free and fair elections. Yesterday, I spent a considerable amount of time speaking with both Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Pichai. I have concerns about the behavior of both of their companies. I would note that Facebook is at the minimum at least trying to make some efforts in the direction of defending free speech. I appreciate their doing so. Google,
is that fair? Do you think Google and Twitter are doing less?
No, this is what he's going to go. He's going to basically say, but Twitter takes down the New York Post, and so they're evil and awful.
Right.
Yeah.
And it labels Trump's tweets.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Facebook did some of that too, though, right?
Mm-hmm. They did.
Yeah. Right.
Little bit.
From sharing those stories. And number two, you went even further and blocked the New York Post from sharing on Twitter its own reporting. Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we.
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018. Go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hacked materials. We found that the New York Post,
nice jacket,
it showed the direct materials.
The whole look is very confusing to me. I don't.
Got a very
like
Rasputin kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
That it fell under this policy. Now,
so in your view, if it's unclear the source of a documented,
I see. Again, I can't watch it. I just
can't. You can't do it. No, we are your friends. Why are you doing this to us?
So Twitter did take it down initially because they were concerned the material was hacked material. When they found out it was not, they put it back up with a warning.
No, that wasn't it.
No,
when they said the journalists complained to them and said, "Well, we also put up hacked material," so that's not a good policy, fellas.
Oh. So they changed their policy.
It wasn't just that it was hacked material. It was that there was private information in the material. So both of those things are against Twitter's terms of use.
It wasn't an issue of disinformation.
So they said that too.
Oh.
They said,
yeah, it was election manipulation. Basically, what I talked to somebody in the company and basically said
whether it was accurate.
What I wish you would do at some point, you guys in Silicon Valley, just make some judgments and say, this is trying to manipulate an election. We can figure out the details, but it's trying to manipulate an election clearly, and we don't want to be part of that. And somebody said to me, yeah, that's basically what happened. But then they've got to back up and they've got to put it in their statutes. And they
the risk to me, I actually thought when they blocked the sharing of the link that was a mistake. And I think Jack Dorsey admitted later that was a mistake and that they should not have blocked anyone from sharing. I mean, if you tried to share the link, they would throw something up saying, no, you can't do that. I think labeling it is fine. Showing someone a warning is fine. Whatever. Reducing its distribution is fine. But actually blocking people from sharing a link from a newspaper seems to me to raise all sorts of, and that's why I think everybody got their knickers in a twist.
Right. It's difficult.
It's a nice jacket. I like that jacket.
The beard I can do without, but the jacket's nice. It's a difficult thing to do. And I think, let's ask the same question we asked about Facebook, about Twitter. Are they coming from the best of motives, but finding it difficult to do the job, or do you think they're biased, Matthew?
I don't think they're biased at all. I mean, I don't think they're organized enough to be biased, to be honest. I don't think...
Yes.
If anything, their bias is towards free speech, right? They used to be the free speech wing of the free speech party was their slogan.
Yeah. Man, they hate that guy said that. Anyway.
Yeah, because frankly, if you're all about free speech, you don't block or ban or do anything. You just let everything go.
And actually, I think Biz and Ev both said the tweets must flow. That was when they were being used as, an information vehicle during the era.
They did not anticipate the Trump.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that when it's Egyptian rebels. It's another thing when it's the president tweeting, conspiracy theories about COVID.
Right. So they're well-intentioned by accident, and but they're struggling because it's a difficult thing to do. How about you, Jeff? Your feelings on Twitter?
I don't think they're biased as a company. I think but even there was a wonderful op-ed in the New York Times a couple of months ago by Wesley Lowery, who left the Washington Post because of his tweets. And it said that the notion of objectivity, that is to say a lack of bias, is fundamentally racist.
Racist?
And that because it's who's deciding what's biased and what's not. It's those who have the power to do so. And who has the power? People who look like me.
Right.
Then there's a very good book from Louis Raven Wallace called The View from Somewhere, which goes to the same thing, where he was accused, he's transgender, he was accused of bias. Oh, you're too biased to cover LGBTQ issues.
Yeah, he was fired.
He was fired as a result. And and he says in his book, I think quite eloquently, white people cover white people and it's not bias. B, you're giving up my lived experience. You're saying that my lived experience is not valuable in covering this. You're calling that lived experience bias. So this whole question of bias and objectivity is itself fraught. It's a power word.
Yeah.
I forget who said it. Someone said reality has a well-known liberal bias.
A liberal, no doubt. Although in Canada, liberal means something different, I believe. But
a little different. Yeah.
A little. In Australia, it means a lot different.
Yeah. And Twitter, biased or not?
Not biased.
Racist?
I don't think they're racist either. No. But as I said about Facebook, they still can try harder.
Right.
With both of these platforms, the unintended consequences is everybody has a voice. That's a great thing, but it's also a little bit of a detriment that everybody has a voice to be able to get out here on these platforms and just say what they feel needs to be said. And sometimes it's not necessarily the right thing to say, but there's a lot of good that can come from both of these platforms.
Right.